uh, panel, I think. Cross-media measurement, everyone wants to measure it, but it's difficult to do it. So I'll just give you a brief on what we'll be going to discuss today. Before discussing cross-media measurement, we'll also have to see how user is moving. So in the last, especially 7 to 10 years, the users have also evolved a lot. They move from screen to screen, from TV to mobile to iPads to a connected TV. So people are using all the screens throughout the day. On an average, an Indian uses at least 2 screens a day. If a user is a bit in the upper middle class or a high net worth individual, they'll move from a 3 to 4 screen a day as well. So people move from screen to screen. Not only one TV, they'll have multiple TVs, multiple devices, multiple phones, or so the trend is not same across devices. And especially one screen might be used by multiple people. So to understand a cross-media measurement or to measure people across 2 devices is quite difficult. But there are some people who are trying to solve it. Prakhar here is sitting, who is trying to solve for that problem. And we've been not struggling, but we've been trying to find a solution for how to get to it. A simple stat, if you're watching any sport or if you're watching any match, around 45% people are there on 2 devices at the same time. So to just catch the attention of the person at one device is quite difficult. So at a time you're seeing, so he might be seeing an ad on TV, he might also be seeing an ad on mobile. So at one way it is good that he's seeing an ad on 2 devices, but at this other way around, you are counting him as 2 people. So it's actually difficult for you to understand how many people you have reached, at what frequency, at what time. So overall, it's a very complicated topic. So to start with, we'll start with Jiteen and Kishore. So because you are both on the brand side to say, and so how do you tackle with this situation when you're planning for big budgets or big media budgets or big budgets across channels? So how do you want to see a unified reach, and what are the measures that you take, or what are the requirements that you have, and how unified reach becomes very important for you? You want to take it first?
Yeah, so thank you. So I'll begin with it. See, unified media measurement today is actually an enigma, if you really ask me, and we really struggle, okay? I know there are so many, tools, measurements which are getting developed today, and there are tech companies which are developing a lot of models. We work with Madison, right? And I know that they also have their own model which they have developed in-house, right? And which is called a multimedia modeling, wherein they try to kind of map the reach from a linear TV to a connected TV and try to tell you what is the unique reach that you have kind of achieved. Yeah, but again, it's an isolated model. Now, what is the kind of authenticity of that model? Yeah, so I may see a unique reach happening across linear TV, but in the absence, I'm saying in the absence of any other, model or any other data point that I have, I kind of rely on that. Yeah. But yes, I mean, if you have to look at in terms of how as marketeers we kind of allocate our monies, right? It depends upon, first of all, the kind of target audience that we are reaching out to. So for Hettich being a premium lifestyle brand, we know where our audience kind of reside. So for example, connected TV becomes like a no-brainer for us, right? So we know that we have to be present on. But at the same time, I mean, it's not that we kind of completely do away with the linear TV, because I mean, there's this entire top funnel approach that we're talking about. You need to get, that set of audiences before you start kind of retargeting them and then, drive them to the bottom of the funnel for conversions, right? So it's a mix of both of them. Yes, there is always a need to find out a robust model in terms of how you can kind of allocate your monies, because the million-dollar question is how much do you allocate behind each medium? How much do you put on linear, how much do you put on connected TV, how much do you put on digital at the end of the day? So the point is, whatever stats are available, yeah, we currently are kind of relying on them. We go by, what those stats speak about. Then we talk about, and also obviously we keep on tracking and see that if a particular medium has peaked, and it's not giving you those incremental reach for every dollar spent, then you kind of move on to a different platform. So that's the way. So, let me tell you, there's a lot of experimentation which keeps on happening, because in the absence of a unified media measurement, which is like kind of globally or, completely recognized today, you have to keep on experimenting and see where you kind of achieve that,
Correct.
efficiencies.
Rightly said. Kishore, do you want to add something on this?
Yeah, so what generally happens is, one, from a reach perspective, we generally pick up first the TV so as to get your base reach. Earlier it used to be like a 68 4+ kind of a plan that people used to make. Now that's history, nobody actually goes for anything like that. The base reach you get it by TV, the incrementals you actually try to add in with digital as a space so as to see to it that you reach there. But the bigger problem is not the reach, it's actually the impactful reach. What is happening is that in the past, there were only two variables. One, are you right in front of TV with a focused attention? Number two, your frame of mind. Is that something by which you are more receptive? The way in which it was cracked was that you actually keep your ad in between those programs where in which it is relevant. Say, for example, if you are a food brand, somewhere in a cookery kind of a program, an equivalent is what used to be done. But now what happened is that there is a third variable that is there. You don't know where the fellow who's watching is at the point in time. Say, for example, I am at Thane station, for example, railway station, and I'm watching a content. Now, my frame of mind, yes, okay, similar to the content that I'm watching, it is there. But my ambience, is that something that is, for me, is it really connectable? Will the ad, when it is shown, will it resonate well with me, the person who's watching it? That's a big question. At the end of the day, like what the person to speaker back on who was talking about, at the end of the day, as a brand, my intention is not the numbers on my reach and frequency. I mean, to be really frank, that is not the primary deliverable at all. Yes, my brand being loved by my consumer. Am I getting in more consumer? I am able to retain them. There's the only two variables that as a brand that I'm concerned. Where what comes into picture is, am I really able to reach them in an impactful way? Now that in most of these measurements that we talk about, because naturally that is being made by people who want to really sell it, they don't have this element coming through. So strictly from a brand build up per se, these variables doesn't matter much, but what matters is, am I impactfully making a change in the consumer mind or not? That variable has not come into the measurements at all, with this third variable of environment coming into picture.
So rightly said, impactful measurement is also important. And you said that sometimes TV, you might be sitting in front of TV, but not in the right frame of mind. Plus, people consuming two devices at the same time, you might not be, you might be on your phone and the ad would be running at the same time. So in that case, don't you think a device which is more in a hand and a device, and that's an alternate thought which I want to ask you. You said because you start with TV and then build on reach on over and above that. Shouldn't the alternate thought be, why don't we start with digital? Because the impactful reach comes from digital, because the person will definitely be seeing my ad. And then go on a platform like TV, because in today's day and age, digital at least reaches out to 60-70% of TV audience as well. So don't you think that thought would, that change of mind should come in, and because it is more measurable and people are in the right frame of mind, still, and because I would want to people to think like that, but still I've seen a lot of places that digital is still not able to drive that impactful reach on people. So why do you think is that problem?
There are two things that are there. One, from an ease of measurement point of view, BARC is a relatively more solid way of measuring your audience measurement system. There is nothing that is there in digital. So measurement, at the end of the day, you as a client pay to your partner based on the deliverables from a measurement point of view that they can show, because brand impact takes a longerish time. So that is one of the reasons why which it is still there in picture. Number two, just because you show something, it is not really impactful enough. For example, MyGate is an app that most of us use. The advertising that you actually see over there, I don't know whether any of us remember any ad that was seen. It is just I wait to just press the approve button and then I'm done, or reject button, and I don't care about what comes afterwards. So just because the device is there in my hand, sometimes my mind is like I'm just waiting for the skip button. 99% of the time I have seen only the skip button and not what is playing here. So the mindset of the consumer is very different. Yeah, from an ad per se, it got delivered. And you'll see bumper ads, 6-second, unskippable. From a measurement point of view, wow, what a delivery. But from an impact, it is zero. So as a result, starting with digital for these two reasons, it doesn't make any sense, neither from a measurement nor the impact.
Moving on to the next question, and because you rightly said measurable impact comes more from TV, and I would want to move to Karthik now, because we are discussing just now that how most of your conversions come from e-commerce and or your website. So that's the last mile conversion, and the attribution goes there. So how do you justify spending that budget on TV or and having that fight with your CFO for justifying TV and other platforms?
It's very simple actually, because it's brand math, right? At the end of it, everyone's talking about your impressions, quality of impressions, reach, etc. Where are the brand health metrics in any of this? So we've created a democratized way in which after every campaign that runs on TV and you have supplementing assets on digital, on BTL, at the end of it, you go and do a pre and post dipstick with your specific TG and you come back and say, this is how the consideration is moved, this is how the TOM and the spont is moved on the brand. And invariably you will find, which brings back to the core point there, what is the quality of your reach? I can throw an X amount of money and get millions in reach on YouTube, but to a person who is not in the frame of mind, it's immaterial, right? Thus the huge problem and the dissonance I have with digital first marketing. Because look at the clutter. You're not only competing with other brands, you are competing with every content creator that exists in the world. How are you supposed to stand out? Thus, on the other side of the metric, when a normal Joe is watching TV, you understand that a brand has to be of an X caliber and an X scale to even be on TV. And that is the rub-off, which is far more important than you can get from 7 or 8 frequency impressions on a YouTube that you're running on a mobile screen app. So what has worked for us tremendously well is weaving in these brand health metrics with every modular campaign that we run. Which is why on an adult diaper brand, I have delivered organic cost of engagement of 4 paise on digital, and on the other end of the spectrum, by spending just 1 crore over 2 months, I have delivered a 28% lift in consideration. All of this is because you're looking at it holistically and not just chasing impressions.
Amazing. Right. So moving on, I also want to direct this question to Sonal, because from a different lens, because from a brand, he is quite clear in what he wants to achieve. From a agency layer, how do you pitch that to the brand that after, and how do you plan for it, that this will be a consideration lift, or this will be a overall awareness lift, or any familiarity with the brand? So how will those measures, how will those parameters go up? And how do you attribute success of any platform? Because if you look at it from an impression, reach and conversion, till a conversion funnel, it will always look bad for a brand, for platforms which are where you are only focusing on brand campaigns. So how do you manage that?
So I think we established one factor, that the consumers transcending very seamlessly across screens and everything, right? I think today, if you look at it from a consumer's perspective, even for us, right, we do a lot of misattribution. I see it on YouTube or a TV, and I'll assume that it's... So technically, a consumer is not watching it on a TV or a channel or a program now. He is watching it as a format. He is watching an MP4. He's seeing a JPEG, and he's seeing a audio, and hearing an audio, sorry. You know, so he's transcending so seamlessly. Look at our own consumer journeys, right? I mean, that's how we are moving seamlessly. And that's really the question. And when you talk of measurability, it really comes in 2 forms. One is the media output and the brand output, right? So when you're talking of media, there's all of these, I can give you plethora of ideas, that AOTS bhi le lo, GRPs bhi le lo, and all of that. But really the shift really comes in when you look at the brand health moving out, or some, you know, the brand movement coming in. The choicing of media really comes really from the fact that what is the penetration of the brand? Yeah, do we need that kind of, a scale of a TV, for example? most of the brands that we tend to work with, also now, the variants that we come out with, have a low penetration. You don't have to go with TV. So, those shifts are coming in. Today, e-commerce itself is showing the kind of numbers. I think you rightly said, Karthik, that, the kind of numbers that you're giving out on e-commerce is amazing, right? It's more about that brand health that actually takes it forward. But there is a larger agenda of brand building, which we can't take away. Because after a point, that short term will start off, you'll have to get that delta out with that brand building coming into play. So yes, coming back to your question, that yes, there is a media metric and there is a brand metric. And it can't go in isolation. I mean, yeah, if you remember a couple of panels back, Harshdeep said, बहुत सारा GRP हुआ, बहुत सारा reach हुआ, but it did not really translate into my sales. Correct. Right? And that's really what everyone's really looking at. Some brand output which is, efficacious enough. So, yeah.
So, Prakhar, you have also built a lot of solutions in
Yes.
that line. And so, how are you solving for that? So, I also want to understand, and because there is no unique scale across platforms.
Correct.
So, how do you solve for that?
Sure. So I'll just take a step back, and because I've heard the brand's perspective till now, so I'll to get it from the tech's perspective at how we are trying to solve it. So when we look at basically, let's say the current situation, what we have seen is that obviously today our media is fragmented. Audience is being is on YouTube, OTTs, multiple OTTs, and then TV and all that places. But what we're also doing at times is the formulas which we're using, let's say when the TV used to be a dominated player, we're still using that. Okay, one is the sensory, many people are still using them just to understand what is my overall reach, okay, of the campaign. But the thing is, since the media is fragmented now and each of the media has its own, I would say, denominator and the numerator, and the numerator is not matching up, okay? Just you mentioned that the YouTube is currently having 60, 70, 60, 50 to 60% reach, okay? But it's there on their base. When you're running a TV campaign of, let's say, 70, 80% reach, it's on the TV base. And when you're running it on multiple media, again, each one of them is different denominator. So if you add them up, obviously your overall reach will not transcend to that. So that's where what you need is basically a person-based exposure. That's where basically you really understand that how a person who is being exposed by media, he's on what all media, okay, and basically from there onwards, you really want to understand the outcome also, as Sonal is saying. So how is he, let's say, doing some Google searches as a business KPI? Is he doing some e-com searches or the quick commerce searches? So you really need to basically relate the exposure to the outcome. And this is the solution right now at Think Media we are trying to create as a single currency.
Nice, nice. So a lot of years back, we also used to look at, and you rightly said, one is we talk about consideration lift or brand lift or those kind of measurements. But I have seen a few cases where in my brand planning days as well. So even today, what I see is there are certain campaigns when we do, there is a considerable lift in consideration of brand, but it doesn't transcend into business. So how reliable are these lifts at the end of the day? Because one, yes, I'll be happy that my brand is lifted and maza aa gaya, dekh ke yaar kya lift aaya. And after that, when you see the business, it's still stagnant. So we had also devised, so that time, and we still use it. One more way of measurement is, has your searches of brand increased on Google? And that was one metric which has still stuck with me, and we still carry it forward, because if your brand is really, your consideration has been lifted, or brand has, there is some brand lift, so your searches should also proportionately increase. So we always correlate. So do you think that that is a good way to measure that impact of your campaign?
Can I take that? Yeah. Search itself has moved, no? Yeah. It has moved from only Google search to Amazon and the quick comms of the world, right? I mean, the marketplaces. So where is search being measured? Yes, but yet, yes, it is a fairly good indicator to look for, dependent on the category. Yeah, because if I'm talking to a female category or something which is a little more impulse-led, I will immediately go on e-commerce and start. And that's not I meant a larger population. So that's really where it's coming from.
No, absolutely. I would like to second that because the other category we're in is baby diapers, and you're an Indian brand, the oldest and the biggest, but you're trying to sell against the biggest brand in the world for 65 years, which is Pampers. So now we have a very distinct tone of voice that we've utilized on digital. Everyone kept asking me, you're plowing all this money into content creation. How is this even moving the brand needle? So we came back to this. We showed that over 9 months, there's a 42% increase in brand search on Google. And on the e-com and the quick-com platforms, there's a 38% increase. And that's the most brutal environment in which it is possible for you to spark an increase. I'm like, बाकी तो आपने कोई पैसा खर्चा नहीं किया है. So clearly there is some rub-off happening over there. So that is one of the golden metrics, yes.
See, and what also happens is that almost all the brands are sensible enough to understand that just because you advertise, the next day your sales are not going to go up. It's actually going to take a long time. So brand building as well as brand death takes a lot of time. It's like your plane was at 40,000 feet, you remove 2 engines, it will take long time before it hits the ground. But when you remove the advertising investments, that's like removing the engine. Now, how people actually generally see is how you do the study also matters. For example, the brand lift study that you generally see in Google, that's not really a brand lift study. It's like some ad will be thrown at us and it will be asked, can I ask, do you have 5 seconds to give this thing? And then you just give whatever response. It doesn't have anything to do with the reality. So that's not really a good brand lift that has happened. However, if you're doing a Kantar study or proper brand health study, there what happens is first and foremost whether your brand has become a part of their choice repertoire. How do you see that? First, has your TOMA gone up? From among the brands, the first, for example, hair oil, is my brand actually coming the first? Second, you see in your top 1 consideration box. First is top 2 mein aaya ki nahi, and then has it moved to top 1? Then you see how it actually moves into your choice as a set. So it takes time. First, if these indicators are moving in the right direction and if the consumers are able to attribute this to your brand, for example, they saw the ad but the recall is for some other brand, then all the entire thing is gone. So that's a scientific way to do it. So, and it is something that is tried and tested. So it is not something that any brand would expect a result immediately, but the simplest way to cross-check is first the awareness and then go with the pipeline, not the sales. So nobody does that.
So, coming back to a topic of what we wanted to, so what we are trying to achieve here. So one is cross-media measurement, and second is after cross-media measurement, what to do. So one is you are good if you are still able to measure. What are you doing with that cross-media measurement? So how are you using that data? How are you using your data, from whether it is from a reporting point of view, or whether it is from a sequencing point of view, or whether it is from a frequency building point of view? So are there any use cases that you have done in those lines? And do you think sequencing, and especially to you, Prakhar, so sequencing, do you think is possible in today's day and age with your solutions which you've built?
Yeah, so basically, when we're talking about the cross-media measurement, okay, the very first thing we need to understand is, let's say if you're running a campaign on TV, YouTube, and OTTs, so there will be overlap amongst here. And when you look at the individual level numbers, you don't find the incrementality. So that's the very first thing you really want to know, that how much incrementally YouTube is able to give on top of TV, and OTT is able to give, let's say, on top of TV and YouTube both. Once you kind of know that, okay, so think of it, let's say some permutation combination, so you have all those different intersections, and for each cohort kind of that, you know that what is the reach it is able to deliver. Once you know it from the reach side, then you're also able to know what is the impact, okay, within each cohort. Are these people able to do any Google searches, which you also mentioned that their share of searches also we really want to track. So if they're able to do any Google searches, that's where you know that the brand is able to create some kind of awareness, and the top of the funnel metrics is kind of moving. From there onward, let's say if you also track further, okay, so then let's say you go on the e-commerce behavior, or depending on the category and brand, if they really land on the websites or download the app, if you are also able to track that, then you're also able to move down the funnel, and then again you try and see that which of the cohort, okay, is this like TV versus YouTube, only TV, only YouTube, or OTT only, or maybe any other combination is able to move to what level of metrics. So once you have the numbers, okay, in front of you, you have very good clarity that how you should be optimizing your campaign next time onwards. So that's how it can be used. And again, this is just on the reach side, reach and impact. You can also try and see it from the frequency point of view. Because what happens is, maybe if there is a cohort which is been exposed to by TV, YouTube, and multiple OTTs, there might be some saturation there. So there you actually see higher Google searches, maybe lesser website visits or any other business KPI. So that's where you can always use these numbers to optimize your campaign and then gain more outcome-based focus.
Okay. Do you think only because there are multiple ad formats on, especially on digital, that makes it slightly more difficult to have that cross-media measurement more complex? If it would have been only video, it would have been much more easier. And so do you think that that can be one aspect, that at least consolidate one kind of ad format for a cross-media measurement and have a similar scale across channels? Do you think that will help going forward?
See, the more the number of variables, the more the complexities, right? So, I mean, if you would say that if we just have video as an ad format and eliminate the others, practically one, is it possible, first of all, as a brand?
I'm not talking about eliminating it. I'm saying at least in one format, if you can have one scale of measurement, does that help you in planning better?
Yeah, it definitely does help. If you really ask me, it definitely does help, because then it tells you what is the impact. You know, if you just put all your monies, I'm just saying, on a video ad format, right? So what is the kind of impact that you get out of it? Because somewhere it starts giving you the efficiencies that you want, you know, out of that particular format, rather than if I, for example, have to kind of look at if I spend my monies between an ad format, or which is a video, or for example, which is like an image-led, you know, or maybe a search. Just having one particular ad format definitely is going to simplify things for you. So I think, yes, what you're saying probably would make sense. But beyond the point, I'm just saying, if you have to look at the entire scenario, I mean, I look at it in a very holistic manner right now. I just believe that somewhere, you know, I think there are these walled gardens, you know, there are people who are not willing to share the data. Unless somewhere, I mean, we arrive at a system, you know, where there is some unification which is happening, whether it gets driven by the ministry, whether it gets driven, you know, somewhere it might just may need to be forced, I'm saying, which probably gives you a very unified system of measurement, which ensures that marketeers have one metrics to look at, you know, wherein they can optimize their spend. Because right now there are a lot many models floating around. You know, everybody claims that his model is the best. Yeah. So as a marketeer, I mean, obviously you use your own intelligence to understand, but you know, somewhere it's still not there. You know, so that's how I look at it.
We also spoke about so yes, one video, but where does it leave print and OOH as well? So there are two big mediums which we have not spoken about in today's conversation, where print and out of home also become two big mediums. And yes, there is some kind of modeling which you can still build between linear TV, digital, mobile, because those are the TVs where you are interacting with more. But where does it leave print and out of home?
So this is a triple M model. You know, I mean, a lot of brands, for example, the big brands use the marketing mix modeling. Yeah, wherein they try to put in all the, you know, the money spent on different mediums, and just try to, what is the optimal mix, or what is the kind of incremental sales that you get, you know, after you put your monies into a particular medium. So there are brands, we haven't used it so far, but what I have understood about it, yes, to an extent, yeah, I mean, rather than having nothing, you know, there is some model in place which tells you, you know, what is the kind of impact that each of this medium probably makes to your overall sales. So I think there is something that is there. But right now, I think people are moving, you know, from purely using a marketing mix model to using MMM plus an MTA, you know, multi-touch attribution hybrid model, which ensures that there is a little bit more, you know, kind of authenticity to the entire, you know, modeling that you do.
So do you want to add something there?
No, so I've worked on a couple of triple M models. To be honest, what has happened is, by the time it takes to get the data, because it's such a long, drawn process, by the time you get the data and by the time the findings come out, the media landscape has changed. Yeah. So, you know, the applicability of it has actually changed. So I think I have a lot of questions and concerns when triple M is used. Because today, like I was telling you, that consumer is evolved, and he's you and us, right? At the end of the day, how is he any more different? Today, if you look at a small town also, the kind of accessibility that they have with an e-commerce and the kind of spending power that they have is amazing. I think that gray lines are diluting, and it's graying more and more as we speak. We are looking at the mediums. Literally, look at the way, if you saw an ad today on Times of India, and if I told you, did you see it on a hoarding, how would you remember? Would you remember? So I'm going back to my earlier point that today a consumer is really looking at it like a format. Yeah, that पहले एक ज़माना था जब लोग बोलते थे मैंने महाभारत के टाइम देखा या रामायण के टाइम देखा.
I think consumers have also started understanding formats. क्या यार मैंने hoarding पे देखा था, हाँ ये brand अच्छा है.
Correct.
And also what happens is things then don't get measured. The people who actually want to spend, they will be suspicious about spending it over there. For example, why did print stop IRS? Why that? Because at the end of the day, they are funding something where in which the output will be people are not reading newspaper enough. So they know it, they know that others know it. So obviously, as a result, you are not spending. What is happening on hoarding? There is no, some people have started and trying to do some eyeball catching what is happening, but it is not scientifically evolved enough. Why is it that as a marketer, I am okay to spend in TV? I get data. See, at the end of the day, like the question that you asked to Karthik, can you justify it to your CFO? Yeah, I need to justify to my CFO. So these numbers, when it is reported, that actually makes a lot of sense. Digital will have to do something about it. See, at the end of the day, it is not just the market. If there is a need for someone to spend, then that spend need to be properly measured and spent. For that, there is a measuring mechanism required. So it is also for the media partner, as well as for the entire landscape, to see to it that there is a measurement mechanism that's there in place. If that is not, then Facebook is now flashing his own data, YouTube is doing his own. I cannot be the player and the umpire. So there need to be something which is independent third party. If you believe that your medium is really strong, then there should be a third party who should monitor and actually give the results, which a BARC does for TV. Unless that happens, some of the media will slowly die. They know it, we know it. Investment will come down. Digital, currently everybody is spending, but there is no real measurement that is there from a third party point of view. Somebody will have to really evolve so that more spends in a scientific manner come through, and it can become the first media of spending, which at this point in time, not everybody is really sure about it.
See, I think
Just lastly, right? That's why they are called supplementary media, right? If you're throwing 100 crores, you throw 20 crores over there on the side. You don't really try to map for efficiencies, you pray for holistic output.
So just on the measurement part, because I think there are probabilistic models and then there are deterministic models. So when you are saying probabilistic model, basically we talk about the measurement triangle, which encompasses your media mix modeling, the MMMM. Then you have the MTA is the multi-touch attributions, and then you have the AB experimentations. On the other side, you have the panel-based exposure systems, where you at least get to know what's happening in actual. But again, since it's a panel, there is a limitation at times to that. So end of the day, you need to basically combine signals from all, and then you need to understand that how and what basically your business is kind of helping you. The marketing is kind of helping you on the outcomes.
I think you're right. So one is definitely deterministic problem, but I think the biggest problem with digital as a medium, and rightly saying, is it's the walled gardens which they've built around them. Whether it is Facebook, whether it is Google, whether it is then DV360 will have another walled garden, and even other DSPs will also have their own walled garden. So yes, it's a problem, but I think the complexity is slightly more on digital as well, and I give that the benefit of doubt as well sometimes, because what happens is every platform has different kind of formats as well. So because till the time you have similar kind of formats across channels and similar kind of so some channels will only have banner, some channels will have video and banner, some channels will have a horizontal video, some will have a vertical video. So different video formats, plus it is not it's difficult to get all the OTTs also together to get a common measurement. So I think that's the complexity which digital faces, and sooner or later they'll have to do it. But I think still a few years away.
Yeah, if more money has to come their way, they have to do it.
Thanks a lot, guys. It was great catching up. Great, good discussion. Hope the others will also have the same view. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, big round of applause.